My name is Arthur Arnold. At least, that's the name on the document they put on this cold steel table. But I feel like that name belongs to someone else. Someone who's long dead. This room has no windows. The only light comes from a fluorescent tube on the ceiling, buzzing like a dying insect. Across from me sits Detective Miles Corbin. His eyes are sharp, filled with impatience and cynicism. He's already asked the same questions over and over in different ways. Where is Chris Walker? What did we take that night? What lie am I hiding? In the corner of the room, his partner, Officer Eva Rostova, is silent. She doesn't ask much. She just writes in her notebook and glances at me from time to time. For some reason, her gaze is far more terrifying than Corbin's anger. They want a logical truth, a fight, a drug deal gone wrong, an accident. But I can't give them that, because the truth has no logic. The scrawl from Mr. Arnold. The night was cold. Chris and I had just left the Rusty Mug Bar in the St. Jude's Ward district. We were drunk, laughing for no reason, feeling like kings on the empty streets of Meridian City. Chris was complaining about his empty wallet when he suddenly stopped. He pointed across the street to a place we both knew should have been nothing but darkness. The Holloway Lot. A fenced-off, empty plot of land that had been abandoned for decades, filled with stupid legends kids used to tell. But that night, the lot wasn't empty. In the middle of it stood a convenience store, brightly lit, clean, and modern. Its neon sign glowed with one neat word: Taxmart. The light felt wrong. Too white, too sharp, as if it erased all the shadows around it. I got a bad feeling, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. But Chris saw it as a miracle, an answer to his prayers for more beer. I tried to stop him. I knew he was about to do something reckless. But you know Chris, he never listened. Fueled by a drunkard's courage, he climbed the rickety fence and jogged toward the glass door that seemed to welcome him. And I, like an idiot, followed him. I didn't want to be alone in the dark. The moment I stepped through the threshold, all sound from the city vanished. Total silence. The inside was even more impossible. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. The floors gleamed. The shelves were arranged with geometric precision. There was no dust, no trash. The air smelled of strong chemical cleaners. But underneath it, faintly, I could smell something else. Something rotten. Chris wasn't impressed anymore. His eyes darted around, scanning the corners, looking for security cameras, for a back door. He wasn't shopping. He was casing the place. I realized he was really going to do this. He walked with a determined stride, grabbing a bottle of the most expensive whiskey, a few packs of cigarettes, and as many snacks as he could carry. No longer like a drunk man low on beer, but like a looter. I could only follow him, resigned, my heart pounding. In a dark corner behind the cashier's counter, a shadowy figure stood. Tall, thin, motionless. Its face was hidden in the gloom. Chris slammed all the items onto the counter. The sound echoed in the silent room. He didn't pull out a wallet. He just stood there, chest puffed out, trying to look dangerous. A bluff. He waited for the cashier's reaction, ready to grab the items and run. The cashier showed no fear. It didn't even look at Chris. With stiff, heavy movements, it put all the items Chris had slammed down into a plastic bag. One by one. The whiskey, the cigarettes, the chips. Then, without saying a single word, it pushed the bag toward Chris, as if giving it to him for free. Chris was stunned for a moment, confused. His bluff wasn't even necessary. But greed overcame his confusion. He smirked triumphantly, snatched the bag from the counter, and motioned for me to get out of there. We got out, back onto the street. Sitting on the curb, I felt a little relieved, despite the uneasy feeling. Chris chugged half the bottle of whiskey he'd just gotten. He was getting even drunker, but he still wasn't satisfied with just that. Then Chris opened the bag of chips. He shoved a handful into his mouth and immediately spit it all out. He coughed violently, cursing. He said it tasted like charcoal soaked in rotten meat. I was shocked and checked the whiskey bottle. Its aroma was like sewer water. We threw away the perfect-looking food and drinks, then looked back at the white light of the Taxmart, still standing strong in the middle of the empty lot. A real fear began to creep into me. This was something else. Something very, very wrong. After realizing the strangeness of the food from Taxmart, Chris didn't look scared. He stared at the store with a sparkle in his eye, not from being drunk, but from a pure and dangerous curiosity. He laughed. He said, "A place like this, it doesn't make mistakes. This food was made rotten for a reason." I begged him not to go back there, but he just shook his head, a strange smile etched on his face. I have to know the reason. Then he stood up and walked back toward that white light. He climbed the fence and stepped through the glass door of the Taxmart for a second time. Alone. I screamed his name into the silence with everything I had. "Chris! Chris!" But there was no answer. All that came back was the sound of the night wind blowing through the empty lot. Dark clouds slowly began to gather above the roof of the Taxmart. The white light started to flicker. Once, twice. Then, with a low hum that made my teeth vibrate, the building began to fade. Not like a light being switched off, but like a mirage dissolving into the air. In 5 seconds, the building was gone completely, leaving only the dark, empty, and silent Holloway Lot. I ran, screaming through the empty streets of Meridian City, until the spinning lights of a siren surrounded me and brought me here, to this windowless room. After I finished telling them everything, my story was met with a heavy silence. Then, an explosion. It was Detective Corbin. He shot up from his chair, his face red with rage. "Bullshit," he yelled, his voice echoing in the small room. Before I could react, his large hand shot across the table and grabbed the collar of my shirt. His grip was tight, pulling me forward until our faces were only a few inches apart. His eyes were bloodshot, no longer the eyes of a detective, but of a frustrated man at his breaking point. I could feel the heat from his body, the vibration of his anger. "I'll tell you what really happened," he growled, his breath smelling of stale coffee. "You and your buddy Chris got into a fight, maybe over drugs. You pushed him too hard, he fell, and you panicked, running into the street and screaming like a madman. Where did you hide the body?" For a moment, I was sure he was going to hit me right there. Officer Rostova, from the corner of the room, finally spoke up. "Miles, that's enough," she said, her voice sharp and cold, cutting through the tension. Corbin stared at her for a moment, an internal battle visible in his eyes. Then, he roughly released his grip, shoving me back into my chair. "I'm sick of this, Eva," Corbin shot back, turning to face her. "We've been here for hours, listening to fairy tales. We have a real missing person, and our key witness here is feeding us some fairy tale about a ghost store." "There are anomalies in this case," Rostova said, remaining calm. "You know it. What's anomalous is that this kid still hasn't confessed." Corbin slammed the door open. "I'm getting coffee. Try to get a confession out of him before I get back." And with that, he was gone, leaving a silence that was even heavier than before. With Corbin gone, the air in the room felt different. Officer Rostova stood up and walked slowly to the table. She pulled out the chair Corbin had been in and sat across from me. Her gaze was different now. No longer the gaze of a cop interrogating a liar, but the gaze of a researcher who had just found an impossible puzzle piece. "Arthur," she said softly, "I'm going to ask you one more time. The sign on the store. Are you sure the name was Taxmart?" I nodded. "And the color was blue?" "Yeah," I answered, confused. "A boring corporate blue." Rostova looked deep into my eyes. Then she began to tell me a story. She told me that I wasn't the first. She told me about Eleanor Vance. 10 years ago, 4 college students went missing near the Holloway Lot. Only one was ever found, Eleanor. She was discovered walking aimlessly, catatonic, unable to speak. The case was closed as trauma from an unknown incident. She was placed in the Meridian Psychiatric Hospital. For 10 years, she didn't interact with anyone. She just had one strange habit. She liked to write or scratch things over and over again. When Rostova showed me the old case file, I saw a photo of Eleanor's scratchings on her cell wall. 2 sentences. The first sentence, "The thing you take will take something from you." And the second, "Never take anything from that place." Rostova told me that no one ever understood what it meant until I showed up and mentioned the name of a strange store. She said that among the hundreds of Eleanor's scratches, another word sometimes appeared, one that had always been dismissed as meaningless rambling. That word was Taxmart. The door opened, and Corbin walked back in, carrying a cup of coffee. His face was still sour. "He confessed yet?" he asked cynically. Rostova didn't answer. She just pushed a thin folder across the table toward Corbin. "What's this?" Corbin asked. "Report from the communications tower and the power substation in St. Jude's Ward," Rostova answered. "From the night Chris Walker disappeared." Corbin opened it lazily, reading it. I watched as his eyes moved across the page. His expression slowly changed from cynical to confused, to something I had never seen before. Doubt. I knew what he was reading. A report about a massive, unexplained energy surge, followed by a total blackout of all signals and electricity, localized only to the area around the Holloway Lot. A data black hole with no scientific cause. Corbin put the report down. He looked at Rostova, then at me. For the first time he was silent. He had no explanation. I was eventually released, but I knew I wasn't really free. I was a witness to something no one was ever meant to see. The next few days were a fog. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the white light of the Taxmart. I saw the pale face of the cashier. I heard Chris's screams that never actually happened, but they kept echoing in my head. I couldn't sleep for days. The shadow of the Taxmart was burning me from the inside. I knew I had no choice. I went back to the police station, no longer as a witness, but as a person asking for help. I met Corbin and Rostova in a stuffy records room. I didn't have to say much. They could see the terror in my eyes. "It's targeting me," was all I said. Corbin, the man who wanted to beat me just a few days ago, now looked at me with a different kind of expression. He was no longer a skeptic. He was a man lost in endless confusion. "So, what do we do?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "We don't wait," Rostova answered, her tone firm. "We hunt it." And those words ignited something within us. Our despair turned into a cold, insane determination. We were no longer victims. We were the hunters. We used the following days to strategize. Corbin turned his garage into a makeshift armory. He filled red jerry cans with gasoline, the sharp smell filling the air. I saw him sharpening the tip of his steel crowbar, his eyes focused, as if this was no longer about a case, but a personal war. Rostova worked from another angle. She taped old maps of the St. Jude's Ward district to her office wall, looking for patterns, for history, for anything. She read Eleanor Vance's file until the paper was frayed, trying to understand the rules of engagement against an unseen enemy. One night, while we were talking, I saw her take an old police badge out of her wallet, staring at it for a long time. A talisman, a reminder of what she was fighting for. And me, I became our eyes. I didn't sleep. Fueled by coffee and fear, I sat by my apartment window which faced the lot, waiting, watching, hoping it wouldn't appear, while also praying it would come soon. We were ready. We had a plan. But our enemy didn't operate on our schedule. We waited for 6 days that felt like an eternity near the Holloway Lot. On the 6th day, just as Corbin was about to burn the entire case file in frustration, Rostova's phone rang. It was me. From my apartment I saw it. The impossible white light was calling again. We arrived at the same time. The Taxmart stood there, glowing arrogantly. Corbin handed out the equipment, jerry cans of gasoline, flares, and the heavy steel crowbar in his hand. Our plan was simple. Burn the damn place to its foundations. We stepped inside. This time, it was waiting for us. The creature stood in the middle of the main aisle, tall, pitch black, and unnaturally thin. Its joints were flexible, but its movements were heavy, walking on 3 asymmetrical legs. And from its sunken stomach, a sludge of rotten food dripped slowly onto the gleaming floor. "Now!" Corbin yelled. We doused the area with gasoline, but the liquid evaporated into the air before it even hit the floor. The creature let out a scraping sound like rusted metal and moved toward us. We scattered, The aisles seemed to lengthen and bend at will. We kept running, hearing the drag of the creature's third leg behind us, sometimes close, sometimes far. Corbin tried to light a flare, but the flame was instantly snuffed out as if sucked into the silence. He didn't give up. He used the crowbar to tear down shelves, trying to create a barricade. But the shelves seemed to repair themselves, slowly rising back into place. We were separated in the chaos. I heard Corbin's furious yell, followed by the dull thud of metal. Then I hit a dead end. I tried to turn back, but the floor was slick with slime, and I fell hard. The creature caught me. Its thin arm coiled around me like a snake, crushing my ribs, lifting me off the ground. I could smell death on it, see the emptiness in its black, soulless eyes. "Arthur!" It was Corbin's scream. He attacked like a madman. His crowbar struck the creature's black body, but it had no effect at all. The creature swatted him away with ease, slamming Corbin into a shelf so hard that dented cans rained down on him. But Corbin didn't stop. He got up, blood streaming from his temple. He roared, no longer like a cop, but like an animal whose child was threatened. He lit another flare, but the flame died as it got close to the creature. He kept attacking, hitting, screaming. Tears of frustration and rage streamed down his battered face. He knew it was useless. In the midst of the chaos, Rostova appeared from another aisle. She wasn't attacking blindly. She saw the broken Corbin, saw me on the verge of death. She knew we couldn't win this way. She reached into her pocket and pulled out that old, worn-out police badge. With a scream I never thought could come from her, she ran full speed and charged the creature. She didn't attack its legs or its arms. She slammed her shoulder into its thin body to create an opening, and with her other hand, she did the unthinkable. She shoved the metal badge into the gaping hole in the creature's stomach. The creature let out a deafening shriek, a sound of pain not of this world. Its grip on me loosened, and I fell to the floor. But it didn't kill it. It only made it angrier. With lightning speed, one of its whip-like arms shot out and coiled around Rostova. Not to kill, but to capture. The creature lifted her, carrying her away from us, dragging her into the darkness at the back of the store. Rostova didn't scream. Her eyes just met ours, Corbin trying to get up, and me still coughing on the floor, before she finally vanished into the shadows. Just then, all the lights in the Taxmart went out. Total darkness enveloped us. I heard Corbin call Rostova's name in the dark, his voice cracking. Then, I don't remember anything else. I woke up to the warm light of the morning sun on my face. I was lying on grass, wet with dew. Beside me, Corbin was also stirring. We were in the middle of the empty Holloway Lot. There was no Taxmart. There was no Rostova. Just the two of us, with our wounds. A crowbar lay on the grass, a few empty jerry cans, and an old, trampled police badge on the ground. Everything felt like a nightmare, but the pain in my ribs and the dried blood on Corbin's face were proof that it was all real. Then I saw him, Corbin. He sat up, staring at the empty lot where his partner had vanished. His shoulders started to shake, and he began to cry. Not a normal cry, but the cry of a man completely shattered to pieces. He wept uncontrollably, without a sound, mourning his partner, who was gone in just one night. There was no more interrogation room, no more accusations, just me and Corbin, a few months later, in his quiet office late at night. Between us lay a records box. On top of it was written, Walker, Christopher, and Rostova, Eva. Case closed, unsolved. Corbin picked up a rubber stamp and with a slightly trembling hand, slammed it down on the folder. He was no longer cynical. He was no longer angry. He was broken, just like me. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. We were members of a very exclusive club. Only the two of us knew what really happened in that empty lot. Chris was gone. Rostova was gone. And Corbin, he was the hero that night. But in his heart, he would always be haunted by the memory. The story of the Taxmart may have ended tonight, but in every city, on every quiet street, there's an empty lot it could stop by. I don't know if it's really over for good. Share your experiences in the comments below.